Raka! Nova! Come out!
I smell you!
Raka!
Everybody, and welcome to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and it's finally here. Today, I am here to review the newest entry in the Planet of the Apes saga and the follow-up to the beloved Caesar trilogy, Wes Ball's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The last few months have been a hell of a journey for me on this channel. I've had such a great time breaking down trailers, speculating about images and interviews, and just getting myself and other fans excited for the new movie, so it's really hard to believe that we are finally here, but here we are. Now, it's no secret that this movie has drawn a lot of skepticism from a lot of fans ever since it was first announced so many years ago. People asking, no Andy Serkis, no Matt Reeves, no Caesar, the director of the Maze Runner movies. The trilogy was perfect. Why are they even making another one? All these questions have permeated throughout the fan base and throughout film fan discourse in general over the last several years, along with a lot of excitement and hype that's been built over the last few months. But all those questions and all those concerns have finally been answered, and I'm here to tell you that if you are one of those who were nervous or doubtful, I promise you can put those doubts to bed, because Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is not just a great movie, but has officially cemented the modern Planet of the Apes films, to me, as the most consistently high quality film franchise of the modern age. This movie is awesome. This is a really, really great movie. I had such a great time watching this. There's so many things I want to say, so many things I want to go over. Like it says in the title of this video, this is completely spoiler free. You do not have to worry about any spoilers in this review. My full spoiler review will be going out this weekend. That will be more structured similarly to my other Planet of the Apes reviews. This is going to be a bit shorter. This is going to be a bit more just running down my likes and dislikes, and there aren't that many dislikes, but I do have a couple. But this is going to be more of just a straightforward review of the movie. So I'm just going to start off with everything that I liked / loved, because I loved a lot about this movie. First things first, the cast. I thought the cast in this was great. Owen Teague as Noah is excellent. He does a really great job at taking the baton from Andy Serkis as a new lead for this franchise. Noah is a great protagonist, and I was instantly attached to him and his two friends, Suna and Anaya. Within 10 to 15 minutes, I was immediately latched onto them. I wanted to see their journey. I loved their friendship. I loved their dynamic. I loved them as a trio. There are some other standout characters that I really, really liked a lot. Raka is probably going to be the fan favorite. I think he was so fun. He's so immediately lovable, and you are going to be emotionally gripped by him probably within the first scene that he shows up. And there's also, of course, Proximus Caesar, and he is the one who I've been most excited for going into this movie, and he did not disappoint. Kevin Durand is fantastic, and on an actor level, probably steals the entire thing. I think he is such a great character. He is so fascinating, and you just want to know more of him. And I have an issue with him that I'll talk about later in the movie, but my only other issue is I just wanted more of him. I don't think he's in the movie quite as much as we were all hoping he would be. He's in it a good amount, but I just wanted more from him just because he's such an interesting and rich character. And then we get to, of course, Freya Allan as May, and Freya Allan does a really good job in this movie. I really liked her performance. She feels very fitting in this world. As for the character of May, I need to see the movie again for a better opinion on her just as a character, on whether I actually like or don't like her, but just as a character, I did find her very fascinating. I think what she has to do in this movie is not at all what I was expecting, and I think it's really interesting. I'm just really fascinated by where they take her in this movie, and so I really want to see the movie again just so I can have a better opinion on how I actually feel in terms of like or dislike when it comes to her. But yeah, overall, characters, cast, all do a great job. A couple other standouts, like I mentioned, Suna and Anaya. I think especially Anaya is really, really fun. He's really funny as well. I mean, I also really liked the character, who's not in the movie that much, but the character of Koro, who is Noah's father. father. And there's also a really great kind of secondary villain that you've all seen in the trailers named Silva. Really, really fun character, really intense and scary character as well. So I think the characters in this movie are great, and I'm excited to see where they go with Noah's story in the next film, assuming we get a sequel. And then just on an emotional level, this thing keeps you engaged all the way through. You are locked into these characters. You're locked into their journey. And speaking of their journey, let's talk about the story that's happening here. I think it's a pretty straightforward, but really exciting and engaging hero's journey adventure. It's really epic in scope and in scale. And in a way, it's kind of like Star Wars A New Hope meets Apocalypto with some Last of Us vibes, just not as dark, not as intense as something like Last of Us. And it also takes a few turns that I was not expecting at all. There's things that happen in this movie that went in completely opposite direction that I was expecting them to. There are some predictions that I've made that are completely abandoned. There are some predictions I made that were actually very accurate. This movie goes in some directions that I don't think some fans are expecting, and I'm really curious to see how all of you react to that. And then the action scenes. I think this has the best action in a Planet of the Apes movie since the Golden Gate Bridge battle in Rise, which to me is still the gold standard for action in these movies. But the village attack scene that we've seen in the trailers is way more intense than I think we've been led to believe it is, and how we've seen in the trailers. I don't think the trailers do it justice. It is a really intense scene. And there's also that scene in the tall grass that we've seen a lot of. Again, the trailers don't do it justice because the way it's played out in the movie is really, really intense. That's another thing. The intensity in this movie is really high. The tension, the way that Wes Ball uses that tension, the way he uses it in the action sequences, and the way he uses it in moving the story forward and driving those action sequences, I think is really, really well done. And then thematically, I think this actually asks some of the most interesting questions we've seen a Planet of the Apes movie delve into, probably since the original movies. The movie asks some really heavy questions about corrupt leaders and those who twist ideologies for personal gain, and also asks questions about how societies should move forward in a world that's ever evolving. These are things that are very relevant to the world that we live in today, and it just continues that legacy of Planet of the Apes, that it's a mirror to our own society, and it asks questions about ourselves, but told through the lens of apes. And I think it's really well done in that regard. It does touch on some other things that I felt were a little unclear, or maybe just not as tapped into as well. It doesn't really go full throttle with them. But when it comes to things with corrupt leaders and twisted ideologies and everything with Proximus Caesar and everything with the relationship between humans and apes and how that's explored, really, really fascinating stuff. And then of course, there's the visuals. Everyone's going to talk about the visuals. I could talk to death about the visuals, as I always have, but the visuals in this movie are stunning. I mean, you're going to hear everybody say that. Even if people didn't like the movie, they're going to say the visuals are stunning. I will say the cinematography and the level of photoreal CGI isn't quite as good as War, but I think it comes pretty close to Dawn. And overall, it's just, like I said, visually stunning as always, especially anytime characters are walking through the remains of human civilization or there are water scenes. There's a water scene in particular that I was just blown away by visually. It looks incredible. Also, the music. I think the music was really good. John Paisano does a great job at incorporating the themes that you loved from the Caesar trilogy, but there's also some great new additions to the music. I don't think it's quite as strong of a score overall as any of those three movies with Michael Giacchino or Patrick Doyle's music, but it is still a really solid score. And there's also some really great nods to the 1968 original film that I think people are going to love. There's also some other great nods just in general and outside of the music that old school fans are going to love, that are also great ways to incorporate nostalgia without distracting you. It's things that if you know it, you'll know it and you'll love it. And if you don't, it's not this little side thing that's made to get fans to stand up and cheer or anything like that. It's just really well done nostalgic bits that are embedded into the story and into the world. And those nods and the way the world is built out and all of that combined with the way it respects Caesar's legacy and the way Caesar's legacy is utilized throughout this movie. And he is mentioned many times. You can feel Caesar's impact throughout this entire movie, and it just builds out the world even more. And in a way, it also just feels like such a throwback to the original 1968 movie. In a way, this movie is just such a love letter to Planet of the Apes in general. You can feel the passion for this franchise in this movie, and I loved that so much. And also, I really think the humor in this movie works well. It's not as funny as War for the Planet of the Apes, weirdly enough to say, despite the fact that that's the darkest movie, but I think that it's utilized well, and it's a pretty funny movie, especially all the stuff off with Raka. I think Raka is going to get a lot of laughs. And there's one bit in particular I'm not going to spoil. There's a recurring bit that comes up a couple times towards the middle of the movie that I think fans are really going to like. And then there's the world building, which is something that these movies have always prided themselves on. And I'll say it, I think this is probably the best it's been since the original. It might actually be even better. It's crazy to say that, but the way that this movie unravels everything, the way that you explore everything, and just seeing the remains of human civilization just used as a part of this world and explored, and things are revealed and you get to see how it's being used in this now 300 something years later world. It's really, really interesting stuff that I want to get more into in the spoiler review, but really incredibly well done stuff. And then there's the ending. Some people might not like the ending, but for me, I thought it was really bold. And the more I thought about it, the more I really like it. It's a big swing, and I don't know how everyone's going to react to it, but for me personally, it got me really excited because I think it ends the movie in a way where it's done with this story, but it's definitely not a full-on setup, but there's more story to tell. Very similar to the way I think Rise of the Planet of the Apes ended, with Caesar and his apes going into the forest and now being free while the virus is starting to spread. You know, I think this movie does a very similar job at ending things in a place where this is a satisfying ending, but there's definitely more to tell. So those are all the general thoughts as far as what I loved and really liked about this movie. I think this is a really great movie. As for what I didn't like, and there are only two issues that I actually had. They're not huge, but they were somewhat significant as I was watching them. They kind of impacted my, not overall enjoyment, but just enjoyment in those moments. The first is the pacing. I think it gets a bit wonky and uneven towards the second half of the movie. It's a bit difficult to tell where Act 2 ends and Act 3 begins because it kind of just blends together until the last 20 or so minutes, and then it kind of just wraps everything up. I don't know, there was something a little uneven about the last third of the movie. When it comes to just overall structure, it's a little bit wonky and it took me out of it. It made me feel like I was a bit messy for a little bit. And then as far as the other issue that I had, and this might make some people a little nervous, but I promise it's not that big of a deal, at least to me, the direction that is taken with Proximus Caesar's character, and I'm not talking about just him as a character overall, really just where they wrap his story up, the way it's wrapped up, I personally found to be a bit underwhelming. And I just felt that with all the great buildup of this character, the way he's set up, the way he's utilized throughout the movie, I think that the way they wrap his story up, I don't think it quite did the character the justice that the rest of the movie did. That all being said, I really like this movie. I think it's really well done. Again, it's just visually stunning. And like I said at the beginning, it just cements this franchise as what I think is the most consistent and quality that we have today. There's no other film franchise that just continuously knocks it out of the park on this level every single time. Now, granted, you can chalk that up to the fact that there are only 4 of them, whereas a lot of others have, 7, 8 movies and multiple TV shows, but still, they commit to the quality and they nail it every single time. I'm not sure where it ranks among the franchise yet. For me, I will actually be doing a full Planet of the Apes ranking at the end of May when I've seen the movie 1 or 2 more times. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I am very excited to see it again this weekend. And I'm also excited to see where the story and where these characters go next. And I also really hope Wes Ball comes back because he did a really great job with this. And after seeing it, I don't want to see someone else take over. I think he is the guy to continue this trilogy or series of movies or however many they end up making. So that was my review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This is a damn great movie. I had such a great time watching it. I am so excited for everyone else to check it out. I think you guys are going to really like it. Once you see it, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But until then, thank you so much for checking out today's video on here in Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one. So until then, goodbye.